Welcome everyone. Welcome to Confronting COVID-19. I'm your host for today, Samuel Eni. The first of its kind, episode 1, where we'll be speaking about pivoting, picking yourself up, pioneering, and more. We have a stellar lineup for today, and I just want to thank each and every one of you that's decided and said yes to join us on this panel, and everyone who subscribed and also donated as well. You're in for a treat as we uncover and talk about all these topics and subjects. I'm going to start with Mark. He's been cutting hair for 15 years, the founder of Slider Cuts, and during that time, he's nurtured a superlative client list that has the likes of LeBron James, world heavyweight boxing champion called Anthony Joshua, TV personality Reggie Yates, UK rapper Stormzy, Tiny Temper, just to name a few. Mark was also one of the UK's top black business people following his own win at 2018 at Black British Awards. Mark now has a book, a debut book, which you can purchase for £4.50 on Amazon right now, and it's called Shaping Up Culture. The book is aimed at providing practical how-to guides to help young readers level up their thinking, shape their goals, and prepare the current and future business for success. Now that is Mark. Don't clap yet, hold your applause. Next up, we have Kwabena Ayim, aka Kwabs. He's the CEO and co-founder of Mixtape Madness. Mixtape Madness is the fastest growing and most respected media channel in UK rap. It provides an essential platform for artists to break through to a wider audience, and they've also collaborated with big brands such as Puma, Capital Extra, EA Sports, Adidas, Spotify, and more. My next panelist, Dominic Cools-Lartigue, I hope I said that right. You can crucify me after, is the founder of Street Feast, which over the past few years has pioneered night market culture in London. Prior to him launching Street Feast in 2012, Dominic spent 15 years in the music industry, putting on events and parties all over the world, from Miami to Ibiza. He's the CEO of Studio Bazaar and is the host of Cooking Up a Fortune on Channel 4. Last but not least, we have the lovely Joycelyn Mate, who is the co-founder of Joycelyn. If I say this wrong, you can crucify me after. Afrocenchix. Hopefully I said that right.
Perfect. That was good.
Yeah, Afrocenchix is a natural hair care company and is the winner of the business venture category at the WeWork Creators Award. They are the first Afro hair brand to be stocked in Whole Foods. Now, I think that deserves a round of applause for everyone. That is a stellar lineup. I think Stella just undersold it. I think these people are incredible and amazing. Having done my research, I just fell in love with their story. But it's not about me, it's about them. But before we get started, Demi, we've got the founder of Lendo, who's going to say a few words. So Demi, when you're ready. Dem,
you're muted.
Can you say something? I can't hear you. Can everyone hear him?
No. He's muted.
Oh. Demi, keep talking. Did you mute yourself?
He muted himself.
I'm going to give you a couple seconds. If not, we'll go into the panel and you can say what you want to say at the end. Hello? Still can't hear you, Dem. All right, we'll leave your part to the end. Don't worry. We might as well go straight into the panel. And I have a question. I'll start with Dominic. My first question, and then we can veer off to everyone who have their own particular answers to that question. How have you had to change your business model in the past during such dire times, and has COVID-19 forced you to carry out similar changes? If so, how?
Yes, I mean, if we go back to the recession from 2008, the last kind of big crash that we had, at that point, I was coming to kind of the end of my days. I didn't realize it at the time. The end of my days working in music, putting on events. And we were doing well. In fact, we launched a new club brand in 2008, the same year the crash happened. My son was born at the same time, so there was a lot of crashes going on. But within a couple of years, I realized a number of things. I realized that the recession, which was beginning to take hold, was having an effect on the industry. Less people were going out, but also I just sensed that there was a change going on, and that being one of the older people of that industry, the generation that I'd grown up with weren't wanting to go out as much. So I felt as though it's kind of, I either needed to double down and say, right, I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be doing this for the next 5-10 years, and I'm going to ride this out, or this is a time for me to change and go and do something completely new. A, because I probably needed it, but B, I could feel there was a need for a new way of socializing in society and in London. And I was lucky enough around that same time. But these things kind of come to us sometimes when you're looking for a change. The universe kind of sends you something. I discovered what was going on with street food at the time. There's a so-called street food revolution happening, but it was only happening at lunchtimes. So councils would stop lunch markets like Whitecross Street from trading about 3 or 4 o'clock. So unless you happened to work near one of those kind of popular lunch markets, you couldn't get this amazing new street food. And I just thought it was a complete miss. So with my history in night market culture, in nightlife in London, I just thought, let's create a new night market, create a new way of people hanging out. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. We want to congregate en masse. We want to hang out with hundreds and thousands of other people around us, and being able to provide people, rather than loads of banging music and a late night, actually to give you some great food from all over the world. It was, it worked out really well for us with Street Feast, and we ended up kicking off a whole new movement in London. And now, you can't move for a night market in London. So that's kind of how I dealt with it back then. And COVID's had a major effect on what's happening with me right now. We were due to open a new site, a new concept I was developing called The Civic, which was a food, culture, and workspace and wellness hub in Brixton this summer. And we just, we built half of it. We just closed out. We were having a little bit of struggle with the last bit of funding. I just closed the last bit of funding a week before Boris Johnson says no one can go out to restaurants, no one can go out to bars. So my investors just said, no, that funding's going to have to go on hold. And I just was like, well, A, I knew my business couldn't open, but B, I was like, actually, I need to provide for myself. I need to provide for my family. But luckily, we realized a year ago, we decided that we were going to start a social enterprise around food poverty in Brixton. So we saw with what's going on right now, people are going to need some support. So even if I can't open the building now, I can at least get the social enterprise started right now. So we started a Plate for London, and yeah, it's been pretty epic over the last few weeks to see the support that people have given us, and as we've been able to go out and feed so many people around London.
Yeah, fantastic. Mark, I'll veer off to you. I think it's very important because I have a bunch of friends that actually come to your shop and get their cut. So, I mean, look at me now. Look at Kwabs. Look at Dominic.
We all need it.
Right now. So, as a key member of the public, the barbershop, the spoken truth, how have you had to change your business model in the past during such dire times? And has COVID-19 forced you to carry out similar changes? If so, how?
Oh, well, I guess the last recession, which was around 2008, I didn't have to change anything there because I was in a I can't say more fortunate position, but at that time there, I was living at home with my mum. I had no real responsibilities. I mean, I had the finance for my car, EE bill, whatever the basic minimal bill I pay at home to my parents. So at that time, and also I didn't own the place which I worked in either. I rented a space in a shop. So at that time, I didn't really have to do anything because I didn't have that much responsibility. Also at the time as well, especially haircuts, even though there was a recession, for me, I was fortunate because haircuts was something which was cheap enough for people to continue doing, even in a recession. It wasn't something that people felt they had to take off their list of things. So the first recession then in my lifetime, well, the recession last time didn't actually affect me in any way. Now, moving on to this situation, now I own a shop, and now, I own the place I live in, and I have children, and I have a wife, and I pay bills. Now it's a lot different because it's like, okay, wow, what do I do now with no money coming in? So it has definitely affected me because even before the shop closed down, we closed it down, we noticed people weren't coming, and I was getting loads of people cancelling their appointments as well because everybody was in fear. They didn't want to be around people. And then we closed down, and now it's like, well, I've closed down, but I've still got all of these bills to pay, and I've still got, the landlord still wants his money. My landlord, I don't think it's hearing this whole, don't have to pay for 3 months or anything like that. My landlord still wants his money. So what I've had to do now is, well, the first thing I done was I made sure with the little piece of money I have, even though we were closed, I just paid everybody. I just paid everyone and said, okay, so now everyone's sorted out. They're all sorted out. Now, I need to sort myself out, and defaulting on bills and all that things there. I just kind of just done, and this is the advice I gave on my Instagram to everyone, was I paid everybody, and then I just spoke to every single company. I said, look, this is the situation. This is what's going on. You notice what's going on. We can't work. The shop is closed down.
Yeah.
Mortgage companies. I spoke to electric companies, everyone, just to let them know as well that even if you're going to charge me a bill, make sure it's not high. Don't do this estimated bill because there's no one in there. There's nothing going on. There's no water being used. There's no electricity being used. So, the method I've taken on first of all, just like speaking to everyone and letting everyone know where I stand. Also, I owe people money. This is the hardest thing. I got personal debts from people who even borrowed me money opening up the shop. I spoke to everyone and said, look, this is the situation. I'm doing everything I can. I'm applying for loans, I'm applying for grants and everything like that, But some of the people even contacted me before I contacted them and said, look, I know what's going on, so, don't worry about it, leave it a few months. So in my situation, what's happened is everything has literally just stopped because nothing can happen in my industry. Dom, can still provide food for people because although restaurants have to close down, takeaways are allowed to still happen. But in what I do, nothing can happen. To cut your hair, I have to be right next to you. So for me, more so, I've taken more so the route of what can I apply for? What are all these different schemes? What is is universal credit applicable to me? Is can I get a loan? To cover me and cover paying people's wages for the next few months, and the furlough plan, and would the government pay some of my staff 8% of their wages, and who's willing to give me a loan to get me through the next 6 months? Because I think it's important, even if the government says it's going to be 3 months, don't listen to that because it's likely it's going to be longer than that. So double that and still be prepared for the fact that it probably might last longer than that. So what I have done is just kind of looked at just like where I can get money from to get me through this period. Because once we open up again, everyone's gonna be at the barbershop. Dom's gonna be at the barbershop. Devin's gonna be at the barbershop. Kwab's gonna be at the barbershop. Samuel, you're all gonna be at the barbershop. Once the shop's open again, business is as normal. That's not the issue. The issue is while it's not open.
I might need a longer session though, but when we come in.
I might up the prices.
First time a bit longer cut, bro. Trust me.
I'll be off to my next question. I believe everyone in this panel has had a business for over 10 years plus. Kwabs, Joycelyn, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe you have physical shops, but you have most of your businesses online. From that, having been in business for over 10 years, how was it doing business in the last recession, and what tips do you have for entrepreneurs today who are about to face the aftermath of COVID-19? I think Kwabs, you can start. Yeah.
I feel for me, to be honest, I guess Mixtape Madness kind of popped up around 2010. So in theory, that is 10 years literally in of itself. And I think for us, it wasn't necessarily due to external pressures. It was more internal in terms of the industry that we're in. There was technological change. We started off as a mixtape website, as per the name, Mixtape Madness. And me and the business partners kind of gathered that we had to kind of pivot because the mixtape landscape had changed significantly once technologies such as Spotify and Apple started to kind of gain traction, as it were. So I feel a key lesson that I had learned was we had learned was the ability to pivot and kind of accept, a bit similar to kind of like what Dominic was saying, just kind of trying to understand where your market is going. In many respects, I'm grateful that, I'm not in the same situation as Mark. And I think it's an important message to get out to entrepreneurs as well, is that during this period, this is not a time for anyone to be beating themselves up. Like, it's not a time to be going to textbooks and thinking, what didn't I do right as a businessman or a businesswoman? This is circumstances beyond any of our controls, beyond anyone's control. And it gets to the stage where, as Mark had kind of mentioned, we have to kind of humble ourselves and just do what we need to do to survive and get by for our families and our loved ones. For myself in this period, it's definitely conducting that cash flow exercise, because despite being a digital business, we were meant to have Lovebox for the first time this year, and that got wiped off. There was an artist for whom we had a month-long tour booked out for. His headline show was meant to be in Brixton. That got cancelled, so that's all that money off his P&L. And so we've had to, again, just try to pivot and then focus our attention back to what we do best in terms of our digital services. And we're negotiating with our landlord as at present with regards to negotiating rent reduction. I'm not a fan of the whole deferral scheme. Everyone's proposing let's defer things for 3 months, let's defer VAT for 3 months. But in 3 months' time, if I have to pay double my VAT, then that's still a cash flow headache. So I've just been literally negotiating with my landlord in terms of trying to push for a rent reduction because, as Mark has mentioned, nobody's in there. And the reason we're not in there, even if we wanted to ignore this serious health risk, there's government guidelines that have told everyone not to go to their places of work unless they're key workers. And as much as the service we provide is a good service, we acknowledge we're not key workers. So yeah, those are the measures that I've currently been exercising, literally cash flow management, and then just negotiating with my landlord in relation to the rent.
Okay. Joycelyn, what tips do you have for entrepreneurs today who are about to face the aftermath of COVID-19? And how was it like doing business in the last recession for you?
So we started the business in like just off the back of the last recession. And I was like 18 or 19 then, so I didn't even know there was a recession. So we kind of fell into business. We didn't plan on starting a business, and a lot of our business was initially funded through university grants. Well, now obviously we are probably going to be in a long-term recession. But our business has done really well. Our best month was March, and our sales shot up after lockdown. And I guess that's testament to the fact that our products are essential for people. So I wouldn't say we're essential workers, but what we're providing, so we make Afro hair products, is an essential service, especially as a lot of the black hair shops are closed. And I wouldn't shed a tear if they don't open again. Not because they're competition, but just because a lot of those black hair shops are very strategic at pricing out people in our market. They're very strategic at running a monopoly on the supply chain for Afro hair products. And I think the way that you combat that is by going direct to your consumer, and that is what we have done, which has meant that our best sales ever was in the middle of a lockdown where shops were closing. Our sales have grown in April, and that's why I'm like, okay, I don't look prepared for this call because I just came back from the office because we had to go and make some more products. I've been carrying heavy loads. My team are still there. 3 of them are still there, and it's been quite busy for us. I think one thing that I would say to entrepreneurs is whenever somebody asks me about business, because people just tend to like to talk to me about that stuff, I always say, what problem are you solving? And some people just want to run a business for the sake of being their own boss. But the reality is that being a boss and having staff means you have to serve them. So similar to what Mark did, he served his staff by paying them first. And that's one thing that my business partner Rachel has always drummed into our minds: people first. We always pay people first. But yeah, have a product or service that is really solving a problem, because when times like this come, obviously if you've got a service and the government has asked you to close your shop, there's not very much you can do. But always try and find different revenue streams. Okay, how can I monetize my business so that if I'm asleep I'm still making money? Just thinking about that. How can I, have a product or service that people can pay for without me needing to be there? And for Dominic and Mark, I know this is really hard because you guys are in you have an essential business. I cut my husband's hair last week, so he was really happy about that. But there are a lot of men who are struggling out there because they don't have their barber. I'm struggling because I really love going out to eat. I realize it's actually one of my favorite pastimes. So not being able to do that is really hard. So I'm not saying that what you guys are doing is not essential and it's not important, But I think from a product-based standpoint, because you guys are doing services, from a product-based standpoint, you want to provide a product that people can't live without, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, great. Big up to everyone that's tuning in right now. Thank you. You're just looking in. But on to the next topic, which is picking yourself up. In a crisis like this, no one really knows what's going to happen. We don't know when this global pandemic will actually be over. The government's saying probably June, July. We actually just don't know. And the death toll is just keep rising and rising, where there's just so much depression. People are losing their family members. Picking yourself up seems to be something that we all need, to be honest. We all need. So I would say this. I mean, I remember a friend of mine who told me that she was booked and she literally had 10K coming in that month, and then every job started cancelling, and she's full-time self-employed. So stuff like the universal credit are the government ways of trying to help those people who are self-employed, but sometimes it's not enough. If you're used to living at a high end, it's kind of hard. So yeah, picking yourself up, how do you stay motivated during the 2008 crisis? And how are you keeping yourself and your team motivated during COVID-19? I'll start off with Mark, because you seem like you've got something to say.
No, I'll just think so. Well, you pay your team, then they're definitely motivated. So I think, yeah, you pay them, then they don't care. They're living the same life. But for me, I think I'm seeing it as one, everybody is going through something right now. This is not one of the situations where it's kind of like, except although there are people out there which, they're rich beyond belief. So it's kind of like, taking 6 months off doesn't mean nothing to them. But generally, everybody is going through a similar thing on different scales. But I just feel like I'm out of a job, right, at the moment. But at the end of the day, I still have life. And there's people which have lost their life during these situations. I think it's about looking at the full scale of what's actually going on, because you can look at your own situation and be like, well, I'm out of a job, I missed my payment on this and I missed my payment on that. But there's people which aren't waking up tomorrow. And when I look at things like that, it's kind of like, well, so what? I have to pay triple in 4 months on my bills. So, at least I've still got the option, to work out what needs to be done. And also, for me, it's just about looking about, as long as, if you're still living, it's about looking at all the situations and things you can do to actually continue working and continue bringing in revenue. Like, there's no good just looking at everything that's gone wrong, because the problems are always going to be there. For me, it's about focusing on what can you actually do to resolve it. And that's why straight away for me, it was just kind of like, okay, well, cool. We can't work for potentially the next 3-4 months. Okay, cool. I got money. First of all, let's give that all to the staff. So at least the staff are all sorted out. I've got all these bills coming out. I'll sort that out later. Cool. Then I contacted all the bills, all my debtors, my bill people. This is the situation, this and that. Can I suspend this? No. Some people said yes. Some people said reduce the payments. Cool. All right. What are all the options out there? Universal credit. I don't even know what universal credit is. But it's like, okay, someone said you can get it. Cool. No, I don't know what it is. It's like, go online. My wife went online, looked at it, registered, go through these forms. Okay, cool. What else is there? Heard there's grants. Go online. What borough am I in? My business is in Tower Hamlets. Although people think it's Hackney, but it's on the brink, because I'm on the Tower Hamlets side, not the Hackney side. Contacted them, wrote to them, what can I do? This and that, blah, blah. Can you get a grant? Yeah, you can. Do that. Then it's like looking at loans. I'm not applying for one loan, applying for multiple loans from different companies. Speaking to Lendo, speaking to which is Demi, speaking to Lendo, because funny enough, I actually owe Lendo money still, because I've got like about 3-4 months left on the original loan I took out with them. Well, they spoke to them and they were like, even, they'll defer the payments for like 3 months. And I was like, in my head, I was like, summertime, I'm clearing so many debts, and this happened. It was like, wow, now they all have to be delayed. But you just speak to people like, can I defer it? Cool. Is there any options of me taking out extra money? And that's all it's just about, focusing on what are the solutions and what can you actually do, because the problems are the problems. There's no point just sitting in your bed, underneath your covers saying, hey, you know what, it's, look what's happened to me, my business this, my business that. I would rather know that if the worst happened, and let's say, example, my business crashed, I'd rather be in a place where I knew that I did everything I could and then it didn't work, than I sat down and no offense, and I sat down and stayed in depression and didn't do the things which I could have done, and then it failed because of that. Because if I look back, I'd be regretting saying, why didn't I just not ask someone for money? Why didn't I just ask for a loan? Why did I not look for the grant? Why did I not sign up to this? Why did I not sign up to that? Why was I too prideful to ask someone for help? Worst comes to worst, is like, why don't I just even, if the worst came to worst, I think I'd probably be like, okay, well, I don't want to do this, but I'd sell shares if I need to.
Yeah.
So it's for me just about what are all the solutions and things you can actually do to make it work.
Yeah. Joycelyn, how did you stay motivated during the 2008 crisis, and how are you keeping yourself and your team motivated during COVID-19?
I will say that I don't think I can speak on the 2008 crisis. As I said, we started just after that. How we're keeping our team motivated right now is by letting them know how important their work is. Our team are pretty motivated, and I think they're very grateful that they still have jobs, and they're very grateful that we're in a privileged position because we do not play with our cash flow, that we're still able to pay them. Even
How
the
big is your
business.
team? How many people?
So we've got 8 people on payroll, including myself and my co-founder. We're still able to pay 3 months of salary, even if we had 0 pennies coming into the account, because we managed our cash flow really well. And I spoke to one of my friends who's a corporate lawyer, and he's got big, like, multi-million, billion-pound clients, and he was like, you're in a better position than most of these big companies, because a lot of companies are reliant on daily income to keep their business going. The way that we motivate our staff is by just helping them to be grateful, and letting them know that we care about their health first, and that we're willing to do whatever we can to make sure that their health comes first. So we're not going to put them at risk because of the business. So, for example, we had to go to the office today. We paid for their Ubers to get in, and we didn't ask them to go on public transport. And I think our staff really appreciate that we care about them, and then people will be motivated to work for you when you look after them. So just knowing that they're going to be looked after, that they're going to be paid, that if they ask to come into work, we're going to provide transport for them to come in the safest way possible. And that the work that they're doing is important. So they have access to the sales, so we don't hide the money that we're making, so they can see how much money is being made. They can see all the data. So I think just them seeing that and seeing the work that they're doing is making a difference. That motivates them.
Okay. Cool. Kwabs, same question.
And I really agree with what Mark said in terms of the fact that we have life. Yes, worse could happen. We could. But there is the reality that your business might not make it, regardless, whether you're in a position like mine where the business is actually growing, or whether you had to close up shop and not make a penny. Your business may not make it either way, and that can make you very anxious. But even if your business doesn't make it, as long as you have life, I've got. Oh, sorry, my mum just walked in. You can't just walk in. Sorry.
It's so good. It's so good. I had a feeling that was bound to happen in one of our cameras anyway. I was just waiting for that one person. It was going to happen soon. Kwabs, picking up yourself and your team right now. I mean, you just spoke about Mixtape Madness, obviously losing the Love Box, which would have been amazing this year, because obviously we work in the same industry, so it would have been sick to even see that and see how far you've come. How are you picking yourself up and your team around this time?
I think, you know what, in a way, it's a blessing that, as you can hear in the background, I'm a parent as well as a business partner, as it were. Clearly, you want some shine on the camera. So it's very fortunate that I'm a parent and I'm a business partner as well. And I often see parallels in both processes. Obviously, as a business partner, in terms of my staff, I'm not a parent to them, so I don't ever want to come off as condescending, but I am responsible for their well-being. And so, first and foremost, is to kind of reassure them, as Joycelyn mentioned, that, you know what, your wages are safe. We are a digital business, so we're fortunate that this situation isn't going to kind of cripple us. But then it's also to be sensitive to the fact that, this is a natural disaster. When it's a economic crisis, I'm the first to start gassing up and say, like, look, if we look back at our history and black people in the music industry, them guys in the 70s, they made it with far less. Look what they accomplished, and so on and so forth. Economic crisis, I can gas it up like that. But when it's a natural disaster, and like you guys have touched on, people are losing their lives, then it's far more sensitive. And this isn't the time for me to be telling people go hard or go yard. This is like, if you're not feeling well, fall back, rest, make sure you're contacting 111. This is not the time to play superhero. Everyone stay indoors. Like I said, we're good for the next 3 months, as it were. I feel that and in staying motivated, I'm aware that now there's a lot of high anxiety, and I can't manifest that around my children, and I can't manifest that around my colleagues. I can't look like I'm panicking, but in a way, I feel that I'm always trying to play it cool. But with my business partners, then any anxieties I do have, I discuss it. In the same way with my wife, when it comes to, nighttime, any anxiety I'm having, I'll discuss it, if that makes sense. And that's how I've dealt with it. I've also tried to be positive and see it as, here's a window of opportunity. Now I'm not running from meeting to meeting. I've actually had an opportunity to have priceless engagement time with my children and some of my team members, because we're getting more. All that time I was spending Uber traveling, I've managed to substitute that with more reading, more research, more future planning, more family time. Like, I'm managing to teach my daughter to ride a bike, but I'm still managing to broker deals for the next quarter. So yeah, just kind of trying to find that silver lining whilst being considerate for the situation. We managed to collaborate with Brixton Soup Kitchen. So at this spare time, we managed to we raised money for Brixton Soup Kitchen at the beginning of the Corona crisis, as it were. Any artists that are going through any financial situations for whom we've got any contracts or we work with, and they've had honest conversations with me, Quabs, can we possibly bring forward a payment and then you take it out of the next one? I've been more than open to having those conversations. I'm understanding it. There's a lot of artists, I've said it to them as well personally, before I want to hear any talks about you doing something left that you might have done in your past life, please come to me first. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of artists are in transitional stages of their lives and coming from very difficult situations, and I'd rather they come and ask me for the money than they go back to reverting to old habits. So yeah, that's how I've been mentally staying strong during this situation.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think I'll end that question with you, Dominic. How you keeping yourself motivated and your team during this COVID crisis, and then I'll also start the next topic with you, which will be one of the last topics that we'll have for this panel. So yeah, how are you staying motivated, and how are you keeping your team motivated as well during this crisis?
Well, my motivation is it's the same one I think most of us here have. It's like, come over here, Graham, come here. This is my motivation. I'm going to show you right now. Come here. Say hello.
Hi.
That's my boy. Yeah. So there is no greater motivation than family. You know what I mean? Making sure, and I've got my 11-year-old son, I've got my 87-year-old mum. That's cool. And making sure that they're looked after. You can do that. That's cool. And my mum's 87. She has dementia. She's in in sheltered accommodation, and I can't. It's her birthday a few weeks ago. I couldn't give her that hug. We went and spent time. I came at distance. I cook up a meal for her. Well, I cook up her week's meals once a week. So we do a batch cook the whole week. I'll order in all the food, so I know what she wants, and we send it over in a big box. Knowing that I have to do that, and I've got to provide here and look after is the biggest motivation. In 2008, it was an even bigger motivation because he was 3. No, 2008. He was born in 2008. So that was right. He was, oh my goodness, he was born in 2008. So knowing that I had to put food on the table was number one. For my team, it was different because in both times it was different. Back in 2008, I completely changed industry. So sold a couple of businesses, and then I just completely left one, parted ways in amicable terms with my old business partners, and they've continued it. And the last big club brand, Fuse, is smashing it. I mean, we're 12 years old. They do big parties in Ibiza and all over the world, and they're killing it. So it was a nice. I was able to walk away quite nicely there and go and start. But in terms of getting motivated to start a new business, I'll only ever do something as if I feel as though there's a place for it in life. And it was even back in the day, even when I was like in my early 20s and running clubs and parties and so on, I wasn't I'd always stand back and like, is there a need for this in London? I'm not just going to bring, and it's the same thing if you've got a product, no matter what it is, you've also always got to be honest with yourself about, is there a place for this? So with Street Feast, I spotted an opportunity. I thought, hey, there's a whole gap in the market. In fact, there's a whole new market that hasn't actually been created there. So it was knowing that with my skill set and the opportunity, I realized that there was a nice, honest connection that motivates you. When you see that you can actually, you can apply and there's an honest intention to do it, that definitely gets you going. Right now, it's been different because we were in the building phase. We'd stripped out the site that we had in Brixton and we're about to start the fit out. We were literally in that gap. So there's no team on board. It's me and my business partners. So thankfully, I wasn't in a position where if we just opened, and I had a friend of mine, her boyfriend, in fact, her fiance, he opened his new restaurant in Peckham the same day that Boris said, stop going to restaurants. Literally, that was the day they first opened. I mean, heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking stuff. So I'm very blessed and lucky that I wasn't in that position. So it was easy. So when it happened, it's like, okay, cool. We don't do the build. It was frustrating, but I didn't have anybody to let go. If we just opened, I can imagine. And I'm sure like you guys for your industries and friends, you're big WhatsApp groups. I'm on WhatsApp groups with some of the biggest bar and restaurant owners in the country, and who are obviously talking about furloughing, rent moratoriums, and all of those sorts of things. And you know, really great support is going on cross industry. But at the same time, when I dip in, I'm just hearing and seeing the horror stories that people are going through, dealing with that. I'm in a really lucky position that I didn't have to deal with that. So once we decided, okay, cool, we're going to have to put the build project on hold, I was like, well, what can I do now? And at this stage of my life, I have a few mantras that I return to. It's like, how can I be of service? How can I be of service? What can I do? And I realized I'm in a very blessed position that I don't have business responsibilities in terms of huge amounts of staff that I had to look after. So I knew that I was actually in a strong enough position that I could be of service, you know? And that's when we thought about, okay, cool. Well, let's actually see who needs people are needing, because 2.3 million people were below the poverty line in London before this happened. You know, there's food poverty in London way before this. And then there's the children who aren't getting the free school meals. And then they've got all these people. You've got people who we know in the creative industries and so on who probably never thought in their lives that they would be in food poverty, and they are now. So they don't know how to get in the system. There's not even a system. Maybe they're too proud to want to get in the system. And I know all of that because I'm hearing all of those stories, and I realize, okay, cool, this is your time. And when you're in those moments, you realize, yeah, actually, this is something that you need to do. I knew that I was in a very unique position, being able to help a community of people that I was in touch with. Then that's all the motivation I need, man. It's a very easy thing to get motivated when you find yourselves in those situations, you know?
Yeah, fantastic, man. Thank you. Yeah, we've just got 2 more topics to cover, which is pioneering, and the last question I added, which was presence. So I'll start off with pioneering. What does pioneering mean or look like to you, and how does one become a pioneer in times that we're in today? Tough question. I'm very interested to hear you guys and your thoughts. We can start with Joycelyn.
What does pioneering mean today?
Yeah. What does it look like to you today? What does pioneering mean to you, and what does it look like to you? What does it look like to you today?
I feel like pioneer is like a buzzword in the entertainment industry. I don't know how.
I'm glad you said that.
Okay, so yeah, because Dominic used to work in the entertainment industry. And Kwabena does. Okay, can you give me context?
Okay, cool. So,
Sam,
how does one pioneer in times like we're in today? So, how is you and your own team sparking up new ways of innovation of how your businesses could just still thrive under this climate right now? So, is that a context?
I guess a lot of businesses are pivoting right now because how they operated before is not conducive to the current climate. For us, how are we pioneering? I don't really know how to answer that, because I think that our business is, I think we were already doing that. So yes, as you mentioned, we were the first Afro hair brand in Whole Foods, and we're the first in Holland and Barrett as well. And I think that going direct to consumer with Afro hair products is already I guess pioneering, is already innovation, because if you look at the industry, people are used to going into the black hair shop, or they used to go in, well, now Boots and Superdrug have some offering for Afro hair, but people are used to not buying it directly from the brand. And they're also used to, well, not even that they're used to, but a lot of people don't even realize that these brands are not run by people who look like them. Why is that important? It's important because it means that if the brand is run by someone who looks like you, they have your interest at heart. Like if you were, and most of you guys are parents on here, would you buy a product for your baby that was run, and where the company was run by someone who didn't really have children and who didn't really see the problem? They just wanted to, I guess, benefit and capitalize off the mum market or the dad market. Yes, obviously they could make a really good product, but it makes it draws you in more when the person shares your problem.
Yeah.
So I would say that where we are is we're doing something different for the industry. And by providing products in mainstream markets, it means that right now the black hair shops are closed, but you can still get our products on Whole Foods, and they're still open. Holland and Barrett are still open. I think just for us, I would say being recognized as an essential product, being in mainstream shops, not just the black hair shops, but the shops where people are buying their foods from and buying other cosmetics from. For me, that's pioneering.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Quabs, what does pioneering mean to you? What does it look like right now? I mean, obviously, Mixtape Madness. I think obviously it's great that the numbers speaks for itself. It's been able to grow, and it's obviously have that online presence. It's amongst other platforms. What does that mean to you? What does pioneering mean to you, and what does it look like to you? And how does one become a pioneer in times that we're in today?
I think an important way to pioneer in these times is to really grasp the concept of prioritization. So for me, that's just looking back at the business and saying, what really is our core competence and key revenue driver, and focus more energy on that as opposed to maybe other areas we wanted to try to grow in, but it was more at the R&D phase, as it were. Pioneering for me has also meant just reviewing the way we work and what new things am I learning in this remote working environment that I'm gonna take forward after this crisis occurs. Maybe I do feel a bit overswamped with the constant Zoom calls and so on and so forth, but there were maybe some meetings in the past that could have just sat on a Zoom, as it were, as opposed to physically going to those meetings. Now I've just kind of broken up the teams a bit more. So me and my business partner, between us, with different team members, we're having like daily scrums, as it were, to kind of then go through not only the priority for that week, but anything else that's happened overnight that maybe we didn't capitalize last night, but we can capitalize on this morning, as it were. We've had to kind of try to repurpose content as well, because now we can't physically go out and produce videos due to government guidelines. So we need to kind of be smart about how we provide content for our consumers. Also kind of understand which digital platforms our consumers are tapping into. And then finally understanding that just because something works for one company, it doesn't mean it has to work for you. And when I say that, it's kind of understanding that even though the public might perceive our competition as A, we know that our competition is really C and D. And we shouldn't be fixated on what A or C and D are doing. We should be fixated on what we're doing right and kind of build upon. And I feel that that's really what pioneering looks like for us, because as I mentioned before, in Mixtape, our site was focused on people downloading mixtapes. We saw there was a change in the market. We pivoted, and then we kind of pioneered in terms of video production for emerging artists. Then we managed to kind of pioneer again in terms of offering record label services for artists as well. So it is that window of opportunity, seeing what's a priority for the business, and then cracking on from there.
Okay, sweet.
Also,
Mark. Sweet. Mark, how did you and your team manage to spark such innovation coming out of the last recession and over the last few years? As your business has grown, it's shined, you've been in the public eye, you've released a book. So it's just going from strength to strength. I'm sure your team has expanded as well, and a lot more people has known of Slider Cuts and the business and the brand, and you yourself as well. So how did you and your team manage to spark such innovations coming out of the last recession and over the last few years?
Well, what I say is, as I said, I don't want to act like, you know, I made it through the last recession, because as I said very clearly, it didn't really affect me where I was at in life at that point there. So I don't want to make it out like, oh yeah, you know what, I battled through the recession. Although I did work through the recession, because I've been working from, I started when I was, I think 2002 or something like that, 2001, something like that. I worked in the barbershop, but I was just in a different place. But if you say the last few years, how we've done what we've done, I think one of the main things has been having a team and identifying my weaknesses and where I need help, and not being proud about where I need help either, and just being honest about that. So that's what's helped me a lot, like having a team, because I've got a team. If you exclude me, I've got a team of direct people who actually work for the business of like 15 people, and then I've got other people on like retainers type things on different deals outside of the business, like a designer, you know, like my web team who I had on retainer, you know, who at any point I need to change anything, they will deal with that, you know, like videographers and stuff like that. So, you know, you have your core team who actually work for you is like 15 members, and then it's like, if you include the other people, that might be another 10 different people. So I feel like, and people have always said to me, why do you have so many people working for you? And they're like, oh, what does he do? And what does she do? And it's like, there's so much to be done. And for where my mind is at for the things which I want to do, I know I can't manage all those things myself. So I would rather pay out that money and stay at 0 or even below 0 right now, and be able to take on those opportunities that can actually push me forward 10 steps. Because a lot of times it's kind of like, if you've only got £10 and I pay that £10 out to, you know, this assistant, it's like, well, you're back at 0. But it's like, well, you know, but if I keep paying that person for the next few months, I might end up making £500 from that instead. So I think it's where you could say I've really pressed forward was, one, having a team, and just another thing is literally just trying out ideas. Like if I have an idea, I try it out. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I literally just try it out. If I go into Instagram and like, you know what, I feel like I want to do some talks on Instagram, I just try it out. And if no one responds, nobody responds, cool, move on. If I want to do sketches, I'll just do it. If I want to cook on my channel, I'll cook. If I want to do exercises, I'll exercise. It's just like, if I have an idea, I literally will just try it out, where most people are afraid to try it out. And I get the fear, because I do have the same reservation when I'm about to do something. So I want people to know that, in case they feel like I'm someone who has no fear and I just don't care. I see these things and I'm like, should I put that up? Do people really care about this? You know, is this really what they're here for? And I think about those things there, and then I say to myself, what? You know, it's not that deep. I just try things. So that's how a lot of things have come about. So I'll give you guys examples in the present times right now. I started putting out these sketches about 3 weeks ago on my channel, literally just random sketches about barbers and just things barbers do, things that clients do that barbers find annoying. One random sketch that had nothing to do with anything. It was just an interaction between a police officer and a guy that was breaking, was loitering on the street. And I've had about 5 companies and big companies contact me in the last 2 weeks asking me if I'll do content for them. And we're talking about like, not even one of like real established companies. We're talking about terrestrial TV channels. We're talking about like big, they contact me because they've seen that content and they said, you know what, do you mind doing some content for us? Like we really found that funny. We really enjoyed that. And this is just coming from me just having fun, you know, just like me just putting stuff out there. Just like, I didn't really have a goal where I was going with it. It was just, I just thought, no, I just want to put these sketches out there. I think they might be funny. So I think that's another thing, just literally just trying, and you don't always have to see exactly where you're going to end up or where exactly it's going before you do something. Because I know there is that scheme, which I do believe, working backwards, seeing what the end goal is, then seeing what you need to do to get there. But sometimes, even if you don't know the end goal, you can still just do stuff. Like, you know, I'm seeing Dom right now, like he's doing, you know, a plate for London. And I don't think he might knows exactly where that's going to be in 10 years. And it's like, you just saw a need at the time, and it's like, why not just do it? There's a space, just do it. That might not be here in 10 years. That might be the biggest thing in the world in 10 years. But it's like, I don't feel like you always have to see what the end is going to be before you start.
Fantastic.
100.
Fantastic, man.
100.
Yeah, amazing.
Take that first step. Do it. And Mark, you're funny as well. Trust me. Seriously. Your sketches are sick. You're a funny dude. It's good. It's good.
I think we literally have about 10 to 12 minutes left. So I'll fast forward it on to my last question, which is presence. And redefining presence, especially in this current time, especially after, how important is having presence on after the crisis is over, whether that be online, whether that be on TV, whether that be physically in the shops, community? How important is having presence once the crisis is over? And what plans can you advise people to take on for entrepreneurs, businesses that are starting out, or that have businesses now that have also faced what you're facing right now, which they've had to close down shop? What advice can they take on that you can give people once the crisis is over?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me that one. So I was getting prepared to answer the last question, which you didn't ask me. You know that. So when you say present, what kind of presence? Talk to me, expand. What are you asking here? So you're asking?
I mean, obviously,
Answer the last question.
so
though.
Mark spoke about innovation.
Right.
Mark spoke about innovation. Mark spoke about trying new things, and not being afraid, not actually having to see the end goal to actually start something. So
It's bravery.
not
really.
everyone is like Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just building on that, it's bravery, and I mean, there's a little bit about purpose and identity. And I think, you know, it comes back down to we're given a little. But people are going through a lot right now. Yeah, people are from personally, professionally, are dealing with some really challenging situations. But for those of us who maybe may not be caught up quite up in the mix, but all of us have been given a little gift of time right now, and a little bit of time to think about that next move and that next step. And I think that I've spent 15 years working in dance music, and I know why I started. I enjoyed putting on parties when I was 17. But was that supposed to be my calling? Do you know, I just kept on doing it. But then I stood back and then I took a chance to think, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life, or am I going to double down on it? I decided, no, this is not what I'm here for. I'm going to take a little move. And Street Feast was a fantastic way of me just kind of like segueing out of it. And it's now given me moving into an industry I didn't know before. Now I'm here, I'm like, well, actually, I've got pause for thought. What do I really want to do? How can I really be of service? And if you've got a business, you're thinking, how am I going to survive beyond? Take the time to think right now, well, actually, is my business, should I still be doing that business? Do you know what I mean? Ask yourself those hard questions, you know? And once you've asked it, when you've explored everything else, actually, yeah, you should be, then do you think you've got time to really think about how you want to put yourself out there and in what way? And as Mark said, take a chance, you know? With Street Feast, I don't know, we realized back then that when you talked about innovation and pioneering, I didn't set out to pioneer. I don't think anybody who sets out to be a pioneer, I think there's too much ego wrapped up in that. I think if you've got honest intention about what you're doing, and you end up, like, for example, I think we were talking to Joycelyn about it, actually, shouldn't, you know, pioneer, but actually, yeah, when you're the first black product in some of these big stores, then you're pioneering. But that's the reason why you've got to that position, is because you've got real identity and you've got purpose about what you're doing, you know, and that's how you're able to pioneer. That's how you're able to innovate, you know. One of my favorite bits when we were running Street Feast, when we used to have the Dalston site, was myself and my business partner. We'd start there around May every summer. So in March, we'd walk around the site when it was empty, and we'd look at it, we'd look around and be like, how are we going to make it fun for people this summer? They've been for the last 2 years. What can we do different now? How can we step it up? Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. So when people coming out of this crisis is just, how can you just broaden it? How can you, you know, and infuse yourself and your purpose into it? It's tricky because no one knows how long this is going to go on, you know. But I think having real purpose and having real clear identity right now is going to matter more than ever before.
Yeah, Kwab, do you want to touch on that as well, like presence? I mean, obviously, I think Yeah.
I think,
Any added tips that you want to add on that?
yeah, I
Having
think
presence, how people can, what kind of advice can you tell people to kind of take on for entrepreneurs, people that are starting out, people that might just have a business for 5 years or even 4 years or even 3 years? What can they kind of do? What advice can you give them to take on once this crisis is over?
I think the guys have all provided like excellent examples of presence that you can take on now in the meantime. Mark's business is literally dependent on people physically coming into his store to get a haircut. But yet, despite not being able to do that, we're still aware of his business, right? We're seeing him today. We're still aware.
Yeah, I
Like,
walked past it the other day, Mark, and I was like, oh, it's not open.
you know, Mark is wearing a t-shirt, right? I'm aware of the brand.
Yeah.
He's doing stuff online. If he manages to get a content contract, then, you know, that's building his brand presence, right? So,
Yeah.
admittedly, it is a very, very difficult time. And, you know, I acknowledge, hands up, that some businesses are having it far tougher than others. But it's still an opportunity to maintain a level of brand awareness, a level of brand presence, as it were. I believe one of the guys touched on it earlier as well. There's no pride or ego in this current situation. We have to look at it as maybe you know, I do need to consider getting on that universal credit ladder so that I've got some money coming into my pocket so I can still just survive and maintain and put myself in a position to kind of build that presence after this. We've all got access to the internet. We've all got the ability to kind of still research and build our network. And I feel that's one thing that's been of key value to me during this period is just having more authentic conversations with people that I respect in my industry within my network. Because I remember when the crisis was first happening, I was thinking like, bro, what type of fortune is this? Like, the minute young African Caribbean men and women are starting to be really successful in this music industry beyond just our artists, you know, executives, labels, now we're really starting to kind of get a stranglehold and a presence in the UK, and then our whole summer's written off. But the minute, you know, I started to think, you know what, there are some blessings in the skies here, it has kind of given me insight. In one person I spoke to in my network, he gave me insight that told me to just take 2 steps back and just research the landscape decades before now. And just in doing that reading now, it kind of made me kind of realize what parts of the music industry after this crisis is over, I do really genuinely want to build my presence in. Going back to Dominic's point, and this isn't even public facing. This is just in terms of there's an element or there's an aspect of this music industry where I've now been able to identify like, wow, there is a wide problem here. And because the spotlight isn't on it, maybe people aren't aware of it. But if I can kind of solve that after this crisis is done, then, you know, we're going to be in an even stronger position. And even though I can't physically solve it now, I can build the network that will help me solve it when the time is right, if that makes sense, and shape a team around it. And I don't know the rules for every business. I'm not a business guru in that respect. I'm fortunate that I've been successful with this business, but all I can say is that, yeah, in relation to your business, just humble yourself, like the guys said here. Don't have no ego, and secondly, your network is your net worth. So use this time to kind of just really network and maintain your brand presence, as it were.
Fantastic, thank you. Mark, Joycelyn, is there any last points you wanted to add on that in terms of presence before we hand it over to Demi, as he did wanted to say something earlier, but he didn't get a chance to. He couldn't sort out his mic, so hopefully he sorted out his mic now. We'll add him on. But Mark, Joycelyn, is there any added points you may have to add to presence?
I think very simply, just like very short, just because you're not physically doing your business doesn't mean that you don't need to be out there. And I've advised so many barbers like over the last few weeks that even though right now you can't be working, keep posting. Don't keep in people's faces. Let them still remember. You don't have to post new pictures. Post all your old pictures. just keep putting stuff out there. I said, if you can vlog, then vlog. If you're not comfortable with vlogging and doing things like that or creating content, I said, just repost your old videos and your old pictures, just so that people still remember who you are. And that's what my thing would just be, like keeping people's faces during this period. And if you can create new content in this period, off the back of this period, then do that. If not, just keeping people's faces. Like, I think it's important to have your name on people's lips and your name in people's minds, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like with your social media pages, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, especially, I think even in this time, especially as well, use this as a time to spread out onto the different ones which you haven't been using. So, if you've only been using Facebook, then, now you've got more time on your hands and you're saying you're bored, go on TikTok, go on Twitter, go onto Facebook, go onto YouTube, go onto all the different ones, Snapchat, and start putting some stuff out there, because there's different audiences out there as well.
Joycelyn?
Yeah,
Any
I would
last
say
words?
in terms of presence, yeah, I definitely agree with Mark. My sister is a hairstylist and she's been out of work as well because she hasn't been able to go to the salon, but she's still like editing her YouTube videos and putting those up. She's still posting on her Instagram, still letting people know that you're there. And also she's even been able to ask some of her clients to donate or to book appointments in advance and pay for it. And that, I guess, can fund her through not being able to work. For us presence, we don't want, here we are, buy us type brands. What we've actually done is sent an email to our newsletter base, which consists of over 5,000 people, asking them how we can support them during this time. And we've had so many people respond saying, I've had this business and I'd love you guys to give me a shout out. So we've been giving shout outs to people on our platforms, on Twitter, on Instagram. We've blogged, and we've written a blog post that we're updating every week on businesses of people who are in our community, because it's not just about us being successful, but we want our community to know that we care about them. And we've even had feedback where someone said they've made sales off the back of the marketing that we've done for them. So we don't want to just be a presence trying to sell our products, but we want to support our community during this time. So being that kind of business that cares about other people is what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Demi, are you ready? Can you lock in?
Can you hear me?
Demi? Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
You can't see me yet? One
Yeah.
moment. You gotta forgive me, I'm in Nigeria. The connection's not... Yeah. Do you see me now?
No.
Nope.
We can hear you, man.
Oh, you can hear me, that's the most important thing, right?
Just continue with the other video.
Okay, great, fantastic. So look, firstly, thank you all for joining our first episode of Confronting COVID-19. I just wanted to say some quick words as to why we put this on. I think it was about 2 weeks ago that I had a discussion with Dominic actually, and he was explaining to me about some of the challenges that he was facing. And it was interesting because he was explaining about the challenges, but he seemed so confident that he was going to get through them, and that actually, they were just they were just hurdles, if that made sense. And then I spoke to Mark not too long after, and kind of spoke to him about what's happening with COVID, and he as well, even though he knew that challenges were ahead of him, he seemed very confident that whatever happens, the show must go on. And it made me realize that actually there are entrepreneurs out there that are thinking that despite the negative times, we can actually confront this virus and we can still do our thing. And when I spoke to them too, I started thinking about, okay, who else can I speak to? Like, because as an entrepreneur, you want to speak to other entrepreneurs that are being positive in negative scenarios, right? So I thought, well, Kwabena from Mixtape Madness, like, he's an absolute ghost, but every time I speak to him, he's always dropping gems. He's always kind of telling me exactly how it is. And then after kind of saying, okay, I want to get Kwabs on the online panel, I thought, well, I need to get some girl power. I need to get some female power. And I thought, okay, who have I spoke to in the past that has always been very positive about the business and where they're going, despite what challenges they may face. And I remember Joycelyn from Afrocenchix when we first met, and she was starting her fundraise. And the fundraise took a while, but I always remember that even though it may have taken them a while to get the funding and to go through that process, by the time they finished it, like no one recognized them. They were a completely different business. They had like literally pioneered in the sense of what they were doing. Like, they ended up in America winning competitions. They got into Backstage Capitals program. And I just said to myself, you know what, like I want to put on some sort of, or we want to put on some sort of event where people can actually hear from entrepreneurs that have experienced challenges, not only in the last recession, but throughout their lifetime, and hear how they speak about problems and challenges. Because I know everyone's scared and everyone's fearful, but right now is the time to see things as potentially an opportunity. Like Pibes, like Dominic, like everyone said, you got to kind of see, you got to see the opportunity in all of this, and that's why we decided to put this on. So there'll be another one. Thank you all for joining. I'm gonna hand it back over to Dominic now, or to Samuel, and he'll introduce Dominic. Because Samuel's kind of running the show here. And yeah, everyone have an amazing day. Don't let COVID stop you from like living your dreams and trying to do what you need to do. We're going to be sending all of you loads of content because we're doing loads of stuff for the community as well. And yeah, just stay blessed and you know, keep positive.
Thank you, Demi. Appreciate you, bro.
Thanks, Demi. Thanks for bringing us together, man.
Yeah, man, 100%. Thank you. It's been able to actually be. I'm just astounded. You guys are great, and I just want to hand it over to Dominic, who is going to talk about a plate for London. Now, I know you touched on it a bit earlier at the start of the conversation, but if you can just express on it a bit more and yeah, tell us a bit more about it and obviously how we can help.
Sure. So, I mean, the roots of it are actually even deeper than recently. When I was exiting Street Feast, as much as I really loved what we did with Street Feast as a business, what I realized is creating these food communities all over London. We were based in local communities, places like Dalston and Lewisham, places that had real need. And as a Londoner, I felt as though that the next thing that I did after Street Feast, I want that business and the sites that we opened to have a more honest connection with the local communities that they were based in. We could have done better with that previously. And then building towards opening this place in Brixton, all last year, whilst we were getting our planning permission and working on our licensing applications, we were also reaching out into the local community. And I was trying to find the cause, the initiative that we as a business, when we opened, that we would support. And then we discovered so many charities and social enterprise focused on food poverty. Kwab's touched on Brixton Soup Kitchen, which obviously do amazing work, particularly with the long-term unemployed. But I found, as well as them, I found a charity down there called Compliments of the House, run by an amazing woman called Sinead Brown. Sinead has got had a unit in Brixton Village where she would feed 100 people a day, and not the long-term unemployed that you might find at somewhere like Brixton Soup Kitchen. These were nurses and teachers, people who just broke and who were struggling to make ends meet and finding life tough. And she'd built up an amazing network of about 50 restaurants locally who each day would donate her hot food, and then she would bring that into her unit and then feed that and then pass it out to her community. And there was one chap she told me about there who was deaf. I think he was a postman. And everybody in the community, the people who worked there, all learned to do sign language. I realized that she wasn't just feeding people. She, like me, she was also just trying to build a community. So I decided then that I would set up an initiative called A Plate for London to try and help the idea of food poverty, help charities and social enterprises in food poverty in Brixton. So then when we realized we couldn't open a site, look, let's just do it now. Let's just open this right now, not just focus on Brixton, let's focus on the whole of London. And that was about 3.5 weeks ago. And what's happened over the last 3.5 weeks is mental. Last week, we fed 4,500 children in Tower Hamlets. This week, we're going to feed 10,000 children in Tower Hamlets.
Amazing.
And we got that call about 2 and a bit weeks ago from when we reached out to Tower Hamlets themselves. And I don't know if the government have basically decided they're not funding free school meals during holiday time. And, you know, kids don't stop getting hungry in holiday times. If not, they get more so. Tower Hamlets have 15,000 children who are eligible for free school meals. So we started last week, and we ended up setting up five food hubs around Tower Hamlets in different wards. We ended up focusing on the 1,500 most vulnerable to start the meals with. And just literally last week, I remember on Wednesday when we did the first day, and just seeing how this food was needed and how appreciative people were for it made me realize just how lucky I am. And B, how important this work is right now, because if that's just in one borough that we reached out to, we spoke to Lambeth. Lambeth's like, well, can you do the same here? I'd love to. We've got the capacity to do it. What I've ended up doing is building out this network of contacting restaurateurs who've ended up having to close down their restaurants. So I'm turning those empty restaurants into production kitchens. We're getting chefs who've been sacked, lost their jobs, getting them back in the kitchen working again, and accepting donations. Thankfully, Tower Hamlets have paid us for the work. I had a good chat with Demi about this. We spent a lot of time driving down the cost of the meal so we can feed as many people as possible. So for literally just £2, we can provide a meal. So for every £100 donation, I can feed 50 children, and that pays for the staff to cook the food and pays for all the stock. And again, the past couple of weeks, we've been literally making sure I've got those supply lines, because I don't want to get to a point where I've got all these hungry bellies and I've raised a load of money and we've got the kitchens, we've got the chefs, but I actually can't get the food to cook with to go and provide the meals. So the last couple of weeks has been a lot about setting the infrastructure up, to make sure that we're able to go and scale, to go and build from here. And as soon as we finish this Tower Hamlets, feeding these children with Tower Hamlets at the end of this week for the school holidays, they've asked us to continue, but I'm then going to go and set up there's a chef called Nuno Mendes, who's the head chef at Chiltern Firehouse, famous chef. We want to set up a proper community kitchen in Hackney. So I'm a Hackney boy, even though I grew up west, I've lived in Hackney for years now. And it's home, it's where my boy goes to school, it's where we live. So we're going to look to set up what they call like a refectorio, which is like a proper community kitchen. And he and I literally closed that today. We decided that's what we're going to do, and that's going to be the next big project, a plate for London. So we've got 3 groups we focus on. We focus on children who are eligible for free school meals. One second, Manny, one second. Children who are eligible for free school meals. We focus on people who were in food poverty before COVID-19. And we also focus on another group, which I think could be the biggest group eventually, which is people who've lost their job due to COVID-19 and who are, as we've said earlier on, could be too proud to get in the system, don't know how to get in the system, and are lost to the system. So that's who we're focusing on. That's who we're getting food parcels out to. That's who we're getting hot meals out to. And any support that we can get in doing so is really gratefully received.
Love to support.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dom. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in right now. Apologies to everyone that may not have been able to get their questions forward. Trust me, just stay tuned. Keep following We Are Lendo. We'll keep you updated and noted on everything. The aim of We Are Lendo as well is to obviously raise £200 to feed 100 children. Let's feed the hungry. Let's feed the hungry, guys. Please, 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 please donate as much as you can. And of course, on behalf of Lendo, we'd like to say a massive thank you for everyone attending. Episode 2 will be out shortly. We'll also let everyone know the instructions and informations of them when the next event will happen and occur. Please stay safe. Wash your hands. Get your food shopping as much as possible. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank each and every one of you for actually joining us and sharing your gems and telling us about your story. And I just appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, We Are Lendo, for allowing me to be the first host to host this online panel, something I've never done before, and I'll be happy to do again. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. God bless. Everyone be safe.
One last thing I can say, if you're going to donate, go to aplateforlondon.org. aplateforlondon.org is the spot. That's where you go. It's all really easy when you get onto the website. Thank you so much. As Samuel said, lovely to meet the rest of you. Mark, I know you. This hair's still waiting for you. It's going to keep growing.
Yes. Mark, just when the crisis is over,
I'll see you when this is all over.
Okay.
It'll be really great, yeah? Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Demi.
What?
Demi.
Hey, Sam.
Lisa, come in. Close the chat.
I think there's some attendees, you know, they can hear us.
I know. Can they hear us?
Probably.
Yeah, everyone's exiting now. Everyone's exiting right now. This should be the bloopers. When you put this up on YouTube, put this in the bloopers.
In the bloopers now, definitely. Lisa, are you there?
Lisa, where are you?
The woman behind the scenes.
She was sending me this chat. I would have loved to ask this question as well, you know. That's annoying.
Yeah, no, next time, but we'll definitely ask.
Yeah, man, we got enough. They shared so much.
Yeah, no, honestly, like
I think for next time.
There was nothing but gems.
I think message me as well.
I think for next time you should extend the session. I think it's important.
Because I was on my phone.
Oh, I couldn't tell if you were looking on your phone or not. That's why.
No, you could have messaged me, so then I would have been able to see and go into the chat.
Okay.
Because I always
next
thought
time.
if there was ever anything you lot wanted to tell me, you would have messaged my phone directly. Because
Oh,
obviously that's gonna
okay.
vibrate. The chat on it
Yeah.
doesn't vibrate in it, so I would want to stay focused on them. And any questions, I'll just look at the phone on the iPad. You know what I mean?
I'm leaving. In Nigeria, I only have one ride and he's here for me. So I have to go. I love you, but I'll leave you. Let's have a quick call.
Bye.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Thanks, Sam.
No worries. All right, bye.
Bye.